黄的夜晚，霓虹灯璀璨，点亮黑暗，赶不走孤单。午夜和白天不停地转换，游走在街头，思念的孤单。相聚的狂欢总是很短暂，战友的怀抱总让我温暖。无聊的回忆让人很心烦，我又想你了，战友在哪端？没有你陪伴，我真的好孤单，我的心好慌乱，不知怎么办。没有战友的日子，我真的好茫然，整天就像丢了灵魂一般。没有你陪伴，我真的好孤单，我的心好慌乱，不知怎么办。你们不在身边，真的好不习惯，我的泪已流干，你们管不管？疯狂的夜晚，霓虹灯璀璨，点亮黑暗，赶不走孤单。午夜和白天不停地转换，游走在街头，思念的孤单。相聚的狂欢总是很短暂，战友的怀抱总让我温暖。无聊的回忆让人很心烦，我又想你了，战友在哪端？没有你陪伴，我真的好孤单，我的心好慌乱，不知怎么办。没有战友的日子，我真的好茫然，整天就像丢了灵魂一般。没有你陪伴，我真的好孤单，我的心好慌乱，不知怎么办。你们不在身边，真的好不习惯，我的泪已流干。
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the show, The Legal Battle of the Century again. And I'm your host today, Rachel. And I have a good news. Next week, I might have a new host joining me. And we will see. You will see a new face. Maybe. And today we're going to spend some time on finishing our previous episode where we left about the pre-attachment number 3. But today we're also going to touch on a little bit the CCP kleptocrat, one of them. As we mentioned throughout the program, we know that the Pax case against Miles Guo is nothing but orchestrated by the CCP. So we explained in our previous show why CCP wants to do this towards Miles, which is to silence him, to hunt him, to retaliate, and to want it to ask him to keep silent about Miles has been whistleblowing for the past 5 years and been telling the world the corruptions and the CCP kleptocracy and how they steal the wealth of the Chinese people. And not only that, how they actually collude with the Western their alliance in the Western world and collude them together and steal not only the wealth of Chinese people, but possibly the wealth of the Americans, the British, and you name it, the people, the deplorables of the world. So let's take a look today's show. So first of all, I still want to show you this picture because it's so important and it conveys so much messages, so many messages in this very simple picture. And it comes back to one of the kleptocrats that we're really gonna grill it down, and that's the boss, the big boss of Wang Qishan, which mainly the person who has orchestrated the legal case against Miles Guo through the PAC, because we know the CEO of PAC, Shan Weijian, which is the gentleman at the bottom left, and he is the chairman and president of PAC, which is the parent company of PAX. PAX is the plaintiff, but we use them interchangeably because they are basically doing the work for their CCP kleptocrats, the big boss, Wang Qishan. So if you remember the last 2 episodes, we showed their public persona, like we gave them the title, which people would observe or find on the internet, on Google it. But today we actually show who they really are, besides their name. So I put the CCP registered spy there just for you to remember this name, this face. And he's a plaintiff on behalf of the boss, which is Wang Qishan. And why Wang Qishan is powerful. And today in our show, we're going to touch a little bit, because as you recall, when Miles in 2017 started his whistleblowing January 26th, in April 19th, there is a monumental event that happened called VOA 419 event. In that event, the Voice of America, the public radio station, cut basically the live interview with Miles abruptly, right before Miles is about to blow the whistle on Wang Qishan and his cronies and the conglomerate, the big, huge international company called HNA. And today we're going to touch a little bit on HNA. We're just going to have maybe a little bit beginning, and then in the next episode we will talk a lot more about that. But the reason why Wang Qishan is mighty, as you can see on this slides, he is the kleptocrat that controls the finance sector in China. Okay, later on, I'm going to give you a number so you will know how that sentence equivalent to a dollar sign. So you will know how mighty and how powerful he is. And then he is also at the same time, for a period of 6 years, he was the lead of the CCP anti-corruption unit. So every time the CCP changed its lead, Xi Jinping, the current the party leader, got his power in 2012. When he gained the power, not just him, every new leader comes into power, they need to have an anti-corruption campaign. They're not really interested in anti-corruption and to serve the people better. They're only interested in grabbing power and secure their reign so they can defeat their political enemies and secure more controls of the enterprises within the China so they can enrich themselves and their family. So that is reason why every time you see a change of leader, you see a anti-corruption campaign. So Wang was chosen by Xi, the president at the time, just got the power, the president Xi, to be the leader of the CCP anti-corruption unit. So he's very powerful for 6 years, but also because of that, he became enemies of many CCP cadres. But we will get into it later. But the main threat through this is Miles's legal case, because Miles trying to tell the world about what he specifically done to the country and how he did it, and also the other CCP kleptocrats, what they've done in the past, let's say, 30 years to the Chinese people and to the world, literally. So that's why they all wanted to silence him, particularly Wang Qishan. Okay, so, and then Shan Weijian gave the money to Bruno Wu, because Bruno Wu, on the surface, although he portrayed as a successful business, but really he isn't, because we went through some of his business dealings and they all big failure. And his full-time job really is a spy master and identifying people to corrupt in the West. And then he helped CCP to execute their mission in the West, basically. But unfortunately, he is American citizen. As I said, one day he's going to subject to the American court of law, and he has to answer what he has done and helped these CCP kleptocrats, throughout the world. And then best buddies of Bruno Wu is Richard Franco. So Bruno Wu hired or identified or sourced a person to help him, as the Christopher Wray mentioned about intermediaries. So a lot of the people that work closely with the CCP, they're intermediaries of the CCP. They've do their parts. And when the CCP need them to do, these people are scattered around everywhere. They could be lawyers, it could be politicians, it could be entertainers, it could be Hollywood stars, it could be a scientist, whatever, a column, a journalist, a reporter, whoever, who willing to sell, their soul for whatever they desire. It could be power, could be money, could be woman, could be fear of repercussions, or maybe CCP get some dirt on them, and a fear of being publicized by the CCP. So whatever their reason, but they basically worked for the CCP. They chose to work for the CCP. So in this case, we have Richard Franco, and in the last show we already told you why he's the best buddy of Bruno Wu, because Bruno Wu has basically given him quite a bit power and money. We're not going to repeat that. If you want to, you can go to see the previous show. And then Nathaniel Francis, who his investigation, his report was exclusively quoted by the PACS case, the lawyer Eddie Moss, and used Nathaniel's finding to smear Miles. And Nathaniel's funding really is all CCP's propaganda, is all written by the CCP insider who designed to smear and slander and defame Miles Guo. So very quickly, these are the last 3 episodes we talk about it, but I thought maybe again just to showing you the map, because the map is going to showing throughout the show, so you know. So why CCP, why Wang Qishan is so powerful? I have to mention someone. I have to tell this person's story, so you know how the Wall Street people and how rich Americans viewing Wang Qishan, because it's completely different than how we view Wang Qishan. Because in Wang Qishan, he is a criminal. He has a crime syndicate, and he steals the wealth from the Chinese people, and he committed killing and murdering of innocent men. Okay, so this is all from the whistleblowing from Miles Guo in the past 5 years. Okay, so but I will show you how popular he is in mainstream America. And in the past couple of years, we've seen so many report. Only they never mention Wang Qishan's dirty dealings, right? The mainstream, they pretty much keep a very clean profile of who he is. But this guy, if you notice, this is a book that released on September 19th, 2017, and the author is no other but Ray Dalio, and he is the founder of 160 billion US investment fund, biggest, one of the biggest investment fund in the United States, called Bridgewater. So Ray Dalio is super rich. And he published a book in 2017. And in this book, this is how he described his encounters and his conversation with Wang. And he viewed Wang as a hero. Okay, so this is exactly the quote from that book that released in 2017. He said, every time I speak with Mr. Wang Qishan, I feel I get closer to cracking the unifying code that unlocks the laws of the universe. Okay, just stop right there and think for a second. What does he's really saying? For me, he's describing somebody that just meet God and have a conversation with the God, like a quasi kind of a religious moment and enlightenment, that comes in when he had a chance to speak to the number one CCP kleptocrats, one of them, actually, one of the CCP kleptocrats. But Reed Daly described that way, okay? And Mr. Daly wrote, such interactions, so it's multiple interactions, because they have a very cordial, very great, close relationship, of course, to do with business and money. And he described with thrilling to me. Okay, so this is the mighty, powerful, super rich, billionaire equity investment funder and chairman of Bridgewater Associates, Reed Daly. I mean, there's a lot of them, and he's just one of them. There are, what's the guy in the BlackRock, Steven Schwartz? Did I say the name right? I may be wrong, but anyway, and Soros, right? These are the people who envy the power, from a totalitarian regime, and who admire the billions, the trillions of wealth they can lay their hands on, because they are the dictator and rulers. They control the 1.4 billion slaves. So these are the people envy that. So they worship him, like as a quasi-God kind of experience. That's how he described it. But here is why. I think this is interrelated, because the time-wise, you can see, hey? So June 20, 2018, Bridgewater received its private security investment fund manager license in China. Okay, so his book published in September 2017, appraising, the Wang Qishan as such a great leader, has a great open transparency and so eloquently, speaking and calling for different kind of policies and anti-corruption and serving Chinese people. In his book, he really appraised completely a different picture of Wang Qishan. If you don't know who he is, you don't know what he did, you probably would take the opinion that expressed by Reed Daly as the truth. But on the contrary, it's far from truth. The reason why, and Reed Daly gets something in return, and he's really happy. And June 2018. So what does the investment fund, a private security investment fund manager license in China mean? So I'm going to give you some ideas. I have information here. So on the left, the pictures it showed you up to October 2018. These are the international investment firms that have been granted a license, and this is a very privileged license. Chinese government, and specifically I mentioned the Chinese kleptocrats, Wang Qishan, who control the financial matters within China, who has the most influence in the financial matters through the security exchange, outbound guarantee loans, blah, blah. It's all his network. Okay, Wang has the absolute control, so he can actually grant people the license. And he absolutely had the power. And Bridgewater Associates got this license in June. Among the other exclusive list only up to 2018. I can't find any information after 2018. I'm sure there's more. I did. There's Russell, I think, Investment got it in 2020 as well. But anyway, these are just a list of people that some of them are from European country, like Italy firm, US firm, UK firm, you name it. So, but the Bridgewater is among them. And so I'm just going to read the things here just to tell you what does a private security investment fund manager license do. Okay, here. It's reported by the Fund Selector Asia. So this is what they allow you to do. So if you have the license, it will allow foreign participants to sell your products, investment products, to a maximum of 200 domestic qualified investors in China. So you only can sell, and this article is actually in 2018 October. So after that, I'm not sure whether the 200 numbers got expanded or it still remain as 200. But as of 2018 October, once you get a license, you could sell your products, your foreign products investment, to a 200 domestic Chinese qualified investor. And who are those 200? They're defined as high net worth and institutional. Okay, they're institutional investor and high net worth. So that means they're not retail. Like, they're not open to common Joe, like you and me, like deplorables. They're the exclusive elite club. Okay, so this is what you getting for. This is what the Bridgewater Associates getting for on June 2018. And at the time, Bridgewater had 150 billion hedge funds and received a license in June, created an onshore version of its all-weather risk parity strategy for Chinese professional investor. Okay, so that's where they get into the Chinese market. So I give you an idea about how big the Chinese market is. Here I'm going to show you the number, and then you will know how mighty is Wang Qishan. Okay, whose fate he's deciding. Not only just the 1.4 Chinese slaves, 1.4 billion Chinese slaves, but also a lot of people, like Ray Dalio. So here's a report that prepared by Ernst & Young, the public accounting firm, and this is called the report titled Chinese Asset Management Report 2020. So it's pretty updated. So it's a total AUM. AUM stands for assets and management, I think, and the management. The total AUM by the members of Assets Management Association of China, which is the body that granting the PFM license, the private security management license to foreign firms. Okay, and that body is under control by Wang Qishan, the kleptocrat. And so stood at RMB 68 trillion. How many zeros there? I don't know. Trillions. It's probably 12 zeros. Yeah, that's right. Or US dollars 10.79 trillion. Okay, so that's the total assets under management at the end of 2021. Neither does it include the third-party assets managed by insurance assets management companies, pension issuers, wealth management companies, or trust companies. So this is also, this number does not include that. So if it's all included, there's a new number, it says there. If these assets are included, then the size of China's assets management industry is closer to RMB 100 trillion. Wow, so that is 14 zeros after the one. Or US 16 trillion dollars, US dollars 16 trillion. So you would look at the pie, how big it is, and you would see all those Wall Street money hunger, those evil capitalists like Ray Dalio. They could sell anything for money, for entering into the Chinese market. That is why they regard Wang Qishan as the god. Predicted, using the language that I just showed you, that he wrote in his book that released in 2017. They are kowtowing to him and they are saying praise nonstop to Wang's ear, because they know if that market is open, even 1/10 of that market is 1.6 trillion US dollars. And how much money can Ray Dalio, the Bridgewater, Blackstone, all the other investment can earn just in Chinese market alone. So that is why these are, so I want to show, I'm not sure which picture that KK has showed you on, but here I have almighty CCP kleptocrats. And I want to show that because they truly done a lot of things and a lot of damage to the West countries, but the media is not reporting them. And you wonder why. But when you look at who controls the media, you look at, it's the BlackRock, it's the Vanguard, it's the, these number of, investment fund on the top that they belong to the same group of people, possibly. And they are not willing to review what he has done and to the world, not only just to the Chinese, and to the world. Because Chinese government, these kleptocrats, they run the country using deception. Nothing is real. Like, you probably wondering why Chinese can develop in a 2 digits, like a GDP growth, unbelievably fast in the past 20, 30 years. A lot of those numbers are fudged. These are fake numbers. They're deceive the whole world. But who is gaining? Who is gaining? Who is winning? Who is ahead of this game of the game of deception is a few kleptocrats. That is why their own personal wealth are trillions. They need a place to put their wealth because they cannot find a place they cannot just, one place is not enough for them to hide their wealth because it's truly so big. And, they're much richer than a lot of countries' wealth combined. And that is why they're a shadow. They're living a shadow. You don't know them. But the Wall Street people and, people like Ray Dalio worship them and calling them God. But the only person who is blow the whistle on them is Miles Guo. That is why he has death threat. We last couple shows we mentioned about the death threat from Wu Zhen, one of the Chinese registered spy to Miles. They capture Miles's family and employees, and they seized his company assets. They just want him to shut up. But Miles couldn't, because he know what's at stake. It's the world. It's not just the Chinese people anymore. The reason why we have pandemic, the reason why people having, the poisonous vaccine, and what's about going to happen to people who has injected vaccine. These are coming. And what about economic tsunami that's coming? Because China is stopped growing right now because the COVID policies by Xi, and many foreign companies already decoupled from China, and Chinese now, the government, the CCP, is now fostering a closer alliance with one Belt, One Road countries like Kazakhstan, like Myanmar, like Cambodia, like all those countries. They wanted to introduce the digital yuan and replace US dollars. So if you think that the Chinese government is still harmless, then you're completely wrong. They already planned every single attacking plans many years ago, many years ago. And this is at the end of the unrestricted warfare launched by the CCP. They want to destroy democracy because they are a totalitarian dictatorship. And that's fundamentally like fire and water. They don't belong to each other, like water and oil. They don't belong. But unfortunately, there are people like Ray Dalio. There are people like, Soros. There are people like those greedy Wall Street peoples that are willing to sell everything just to gain personal gains, regardless, the life of deplorables, not only Chinese, but also Americans. So, but too much about the CCP kleptocrats and their collusion with the Wall Street. But I just wanted to tell you how mighty they are and how powerful they are. The wealth and the money they're playing are in 12 zeros. They're on trillions. They're not billions anymore. They're playing trillions. So I want to go back to Miles's case to finish what I didn't have a chance to finish in last episode, is the judgment attachment number 3 that the PAG is seeking against Miles. And in the attachment number 3, they're trying to establish their arguments, which is right here. They want to say Miles is a serious liar, when they themselves are serious liars and using nothing but deception to deceive the world. Okay, but they want to paint that onto Miles, and this is how they do it. So in the second pre-judgment attachment, they discrediting Miles, repeatedly using CCP's propaganda through the mouth of Nathaniel Francis. Because Nathaniel Francis is a certified fraud investigator. Somehow that credential kind of lifted everything up. Even he can turn a lie into a truth if you stamped with a credential called a certified fraud investigator. But they're still lies. So they continued because they see it's working, because the judge ordered in their favor. Although the judge denied the PAC's motion, but they opened another door for PACs to continue the discovery. And then in the third judgment attachment, they continued. So I'm going to get down to the nitty gritty of it. The strategy, quickly, just to overview, they focused on irrelevant issues. The PAC's counsel, Eddie Moss, writing the picture here. So in the prejudgment attachment number 3 arguments, he trying to find or third parties hearsays and trying to dig out information that is not relevant to this case, and tried every opportunity to attack Miles' character and integrity. And this is what he's trying to do. So in the last show, we ended here with the first thing that Eddie Moss did, which is calling for Michael Ehrman to do a deposition on September 24th, 2018. And Michael Ehrman, as I mentioned previously in the episode, he is Executive Vice President and CEO of Sherry Netherlands Residence. And in this deposition, so Eddie Moss, which PAC's counsel, asked him, did you ever come to understanding that if you had to chase Mr. Guo for non-payment, the fact that he was purchasing in an LLC as opposed to in his individual capacity would make it harder for you to get Miles Guo's personal assets? Again, this is a purely hypothetical question because there's no incidents occurred. Sherry Netherlands or Mr. Ehrman never had to chase payments from Guo. It's just Eddie Moss's hypothetical question to ask Mr. Ehrman. And Mr. Ehrman gave a straight answer, say, yes, it would be. If what you say is true, this would be, because it's not individual personal assets. It's purchased the residence through a corporation, a limited liability corporation. Of course, we all know if you have a basic understanding of what is a corporation, then you would know corporation would protect, when it comes to the debtor and credits, that protects you with a limited, because it's a limited liability, right? You don't hold it personally liable for those things. So for sure, everybody know if you have graduated from the business school and touched a little bit on the basic of corporation and accounting, you would know the answer is yes, right? But in PAC's argument, in the written document submitted to the court, Eddie Moss is putting the words in Mr. Ehrman's mouth. So basically in his arguments, he's saying that Mr. Ehrman is saying that it would make it harder to get to Mr. Guo's personal assets. And it's saying that it's unprecedented at the Sherry Netherlands, which is the purchasing by the New York LLC, testified by Mr. Ehrman, like 50% of the purchase at the Sherry Netherlands Hotel is done through the LLC. It's not under the personal individual capacity, but a company, a corporation, a limited liability, a corporation, but which, of course, PAC's is omitted here. In his argument, they don't mention that. They only mention things that would be adverse to Miles Guo, of course. And the next page, I want to show you more about in the deposition because you have to remember, Eddie Moss, the PAC's counsel, they have to create something, right? They have to create opportunities to attack Miles. So the best strategy and tactic to do is to poke around and talk to people. And they're trying to find and misleading that person and leading that person to a very direct question or hypothetical question and using that against Miles. So that's their tactics. So in this deposition, Eddie Moss asked Mr. Ehrman more questions. So this is all Mr. Ehrman and Eddie Moss's conversation. So I'm going to give you a flavor of it. So I'm going to read it here and say, sure, Mr. Kwok did not, this is Eddie Moss speaking, in connection with the board approval process, Mr. Guo did not provide any evidence of ownership of U.S. assets, right? Is that correct? And then Mr. Ehrman say, yes, he did not provide any evidence of ownership of U.S. assets. And then Eddie Moss, the PAC's counsel, continued, had that ever happened before other than with Mr. Guo? And Mr. Ehrman's answer is, I'm just going through my mind as to what foreign owners we have that purchased during my time. No. By the way, Ehrman has worked there for 9 years. Okay, so doing his time. And then Eddie Moss keep going. So even though there were other foreign owners, they all showed U.S. assets to the best of your recollection. So that's Eddie Moss asking. And then Mr. Ehrman answered, to the best of my recollection, yes. And then Eddie Moss continued, generally speaking, how would you describe the level of financial disclosure that Ms. Guo made compare with the financial disclosure that other prospective purchasers made? And then Mr. Ehrman answered, it was not standard and customary disclosure. And then PAX using that answer and say what Miles Guo has did is out of customary, and that they infer that something must be wrong if that's the case. So that's PAX's position. And then Eddie Moss went on and saying, so to the best of your recollection, all of the LLC owners of the residence at the Sheraton are New York LLCs? And then Ehrman said, yes, that would be accurate, yes. And then Eddie Moss again asked, and can you identify any residence at the Sheraton Hotel that's owned by one LLC in turn is owned by another LLC? And Mr. Ehrman said, no. 50% of the ownership at the Sheraton Hotel, they're only owned by one LLC. Okay, so in this particular cases, I will later on touch to the structure of it. So we will see it later on, but let me finish reading Eddie Moss and Ehrman's conversation in this deposition. So, and then Eddie Moss went on, so the structure that Ms. Guo used here was a unique structure. And Ehrman say yes. And then Eddie Moss asked, one that you have never seen before and never seen since? And Ehrman said, correct. Okay, so you get a feeling about what PAX and what Eddie Moss is trying to do. He's trying to ask questions, and these questions is already have pretense in it. A lot of them are hypothetical, as I showed you previously, and this is he drilled down and repeatedly asked the same thing. Although they identified that it is very, very, it is not a standard, and Mr. Ehrman did not see this kind of structure because Miles purchased the apartment using a BVI LLC. And then the BVI LLC owns the New York LLC. And then the New York LLC owns the residence. So there's a double layer in terms of the LLC. So they're trying to insinuating there's something wrong with this structure. But as we all know, there's nothing wrong with it, right? It's a choice. You could choose to purchase those LLC using legal means and methods, and then and it's all registered public information. If you want to go search, you can find it. There's nothing wrong with it. They can be put under the sun, and withstood any deposition and any testimony that you would have throw at Miles. So this is nothing wrong, but PAX trying to say this is out of ordinary and this is unusual, and there must be a reason why Miles did this. Okay, and then this is where he paved his way for the second thing that he want to accuse Miles of. So a second, I want to KK bring up that slides. It say, PAX accused Guo of lying and invented a theory. Okay, this is how Eddie Moss, the counsel of PAX, go through step by step and trying to build a portrayal of Miles as a liar. Okay, so Bravelock, a company that Guo's lawyers represented to the Sheraton was owned 50% by Guo and 50% by his son. So this is strictly from the pre-judgment attachment number 3, the written arguments that PAX submitted to the court. And then Guo testified at his deposition that the money to purchase the residence was not his, but rather came from Zhang Wei. He even denied that he owned Bravelock, testifying instead that Zhang Wei did. And then he went on in this argument, he said, Guo denied being the source of those funds, presumably because he does not want them tied to the loan he took from PAX LP. Okay, here we go. The red part is very important. If you recall from the last episode, we said, we went through a little bit law. In order to have, for the judge to grant attachment, there's grounds for attachment. So we went to see the grounds for attachment, and they have to show the intent to defraud the creditor, and the intent to frustrate the judgment of the order. Okay, so either or. So the plaintiff they must establish intent to defraud them, or the defendant's intent to frustrate the judgment. Okay, so this is why it's so important. The PACs always wanted linking the stories. Okay, so they wanted to always tell the court a story that Miles had a loan, personal guarantee, a loan of 30 million, and then plus interest, it's growing, and amounted to 88 million when they initially brought the suits. And then Miles never intended to repay the loan, and Miles, using that money, purchased a luxury apartment for his personal use. Hence, he trying to evade the debtor, his obligation. That is why he needs to, his apartment needs to be attached to PACs. Okay, so that's their story. That's their theory. They wanted to invent that theory. In the meantime, they trying to attack Miles as Miles is a liar, is a frauder, just like what he did in China. Look at what he did in China. He stole this. He forced his employees to make fake documents. So and so, right? We spent a previous episode to paint this picture, but it bogged down the question whether Miles telling the truth or not, right? It doesn't matter what the PACs is saying, or is insinuating, or is trying to create something out of nothing, but what is the fact? That's very important. So here's a very simple structure. Okay, Geneva BVI LLC is a British Virgin Island Geneva LLC, which is the sole shareholder of the New York LLC, Geneva New York LLC, which is the owner of the Sheraton Netherlands Hotel. Okay, so that's a very simple structure and nothing wrong with it. And despite that PACs and Mr. Ehrman thinking that this is out of a customary, but I will tell you, it is also out of a customary that you will see one person is taking on the entire totalitarian regime and wanted to blow whistle on this most mighty, almighty people, the CCP kleptocrats, that all the Wall Street guy was bowing down and only saying praise to, and Miles Guo willing to review the truth and dare to review the truth. And he definitely is not ordinary. Miles Guo is the only person that's still standing firm against the totalitarian regime and still today telling the truth. And everything he's saying is telling truth. And I remember in his previous live broadcasting, I think maybe a couple years ago, he mentioned something about, everybody needs to answer 3 questions at the end of their life, maybe during their life, I don't know. The 3 fundamental questions the person needs to face and needs to answer. Where did he get his money? Where did his money go? And does he own or possess the money lawfully? He repeatedly telling the followers saying that you cannot, everything you have to say, it has to be truth, because ultimately you have to answer those questions. Okay, you have to answer those questions. He always reminded people you have to tell the truth. You cannot lie. Even you think it's a trivial, it's frivolous, it's to get by, or you cannot lie. He insisted. So he founded the whole whistleblower movement based on truth, because he know CCP lies. Everything about them is deception and lie. The best weapon to destroy the totalitarian dictatorship is truth. And so that's why they're afraid. They're afraid of truth-telling people. They're afraid of them. That's why they tried everything to attack them and silence them. And Miles is the only person standing. That's why I say Miles is not customary. You don't see a Miles every day. As a matter of fact, I've never seen a person like Miles before, and who only telling the truth. And so this simple structure is nothing wrong with it. So regardless why, how badly the PACs want to paint Miles as a liar, they failed, because it's a legal structure. And then the next slides I want to show quickly, because I'm going to touch down the facts a little bit. So Bravelock is, so many of you wonder, what's Bravelock? Bravelock is a company that the money comes from Bravelock, right, to pay for the residents. Although the money was transferred to pay for the Sherry Netherlands from the Geneva Hong Kong LLC, but really the fund was provided by Bravelock. So Bravelock is also a BVI company, it's an investment company. Later on, I will show you everything, and you will understand the relationship between all of them. And it's a Guo's family investment and managed by Milson. Milson is Miles Guo's son, only son. Okay, so, and he has been managing the investment via Bravelock since 2013. Okay, so I will get down to the facts and you will know in just a minute. So I want to show you this legal documents that was filed in 2021, January 14th, because you can find a lot of answer in this particular court documents. And this is a court documents filed in Virgin Island, British Virgin Island. It's the Eastern Caribbean Superior Court at Virgin Islands in the High Court of Justice Commercial Division. And this is actually PAX. So PAX brought this case to the BVI. Okay, so, and in this case, PAX is a claimant or the plaintiff, and then the defendants are the four people on the screen. So the number one is Geneva Holding Corporation, which is the BVI company that we just mentioned. And then the Bravelock Limited, which I also just mentioned, who basically the money comes from, pay for the share in Netherlands comes from Bravelock. And then the third defendant is Guo, Miles Guo, and the fourth is Miles Guo's son, Guo Qiang, Milson in another name. So let's take a look the facts. What are the facts? Okay, so coming from this legal document, the facts number, the first page of facts. So Bravelock is a company incorporated in the British Virgin Islands on April 2nd, 2013. Okay, so the case, the complaint brought by PAX against Miles was on 2017, April 18th at 4 p.m. So, but the Bravelock has been incorporated way before, 4 years prior to this case being brought against Miles. And second fact is Bravelock is an investment vehicle for Milson, which Miles' son, to make investment outside of the PRC, the People's Republic of China, on behalf of himself and the family group. Okay, so that's a fact number two. So, Bravelock, the BVI company, is an investment vehicle for Milson to manage the Guo's family's investments. So since 2010, Miles' son, has been responsible for investment outside of the PRC for the family group. Okay, so even 3 years prior, the inception of the Bravelock investment, Milson, which is Miles' son, has been, responsible for investing for the family, for the Guo family. Because the Guo family, we know it's a big family because Miles has 7 brothers, right? But unfortunately, one of the younger brother died after the Tiananmen Square student movement and killed by the CCP, basically. And then the fourth fact is from January 26, 2015 to May 12, 2015, Miles Guo was a shareholder of Bravelock. And Sherry Netherlands was purchased in March 2015. Okay, so this is very important because PAX was trying to say, if you recall, if we can flip back to slide number 12, just to remind you, PAX is accusing Guo of lying. And slide number 2 particularly saying that, Guo, at the time of purchase Sherry Netherlands, told the Sherry Netherlands that he owns 50% by his son. But in his deposition, which Guo's deposition was in 2018, it was not 2015 because the Sherry Netherlands was purchased in 2015. So when Miles said he was, the lawyer represented that Guo owns 50% and his son owns 50%. That was absolutely accurate because what I just read to you, right? What I just read to you on slide number 16, it's saying that from January 26, 2015 to May 2015, 12, Guo was a shareholder of Bravelock. That means Guo was, at the time of purchasing, the lawyer, whatever submitted by the lawyer to the Sherry Netherlands was absolutely truth. So the PAX cannot say that Guo is a liar because that was accurate at the time. But then when Guo did his deposition in 2018, that time he's no longer the shareholder of Bravelock. So when the deposition, when Guo back to the, when Guo said, I'm not, this does not belong to me and I didn't pay for this. This is absolutely truth. So this is very key details that I want you to remember, okay? And then let's go on the facts number 5. So fact number 5 says, Mylson has been the sole director and ultimate beneficial owner of Bravolock. That's undisputed facts. That's it. And then we flip to the next page of facts. So this is give you a little bit idea about the background, Bravolock and Mylson's operation, and in terms of helping Guo family's investment. So this documents in the BVI tells all, basically. It says, fact number 6. Whenever Mylson identified an investment, he would share the details of the potential investment with the family group. And the family group members would decide their respective participation in the funding. Okay, so that's very clear. So Mylson is a chief investment officer serving the Guo's family group. And he will identify those opportunities and then telling them, and then they can have opportunity to say, yeah, I want to be part of that. Yeah, no, I don't want it. I want that. I don't want that. They can choose. They can give feedbacks to Mylson, which is Mylson's son. And the 7th fact, the investment would be purchased using one of the entities incorporated by Mylson, and the asset would be held legally and beneficially by Mylson through the designated entity. Okay, so that's how they invest. Okay, and 8, when the investment was liquidated, the funds provided by the family would be repaid together with a share of the profit as per Mylson's discretion, depending on the amount of profit generated. Mylson would also receive a percentage of any profits, and he would be paid for his services, which were deducted from the sum prior to any distribution. Okay, so this is when the investment was liquidated, which means, Sharon Neslin is an investment, okay? And it was paid by Mylson, and that's why they wanted to liquidate. And matter of fact, this hotel, they purchased in March 2015, and they will put it on the market in October 2015, the same year, way before the complaint Pax brought against Miles. So that has nothing to do with Pax, because this is purely an investment, right? They wanted to liquidate for whatever reason, we don't know, but it's purely legitimate. So when the investment liquidated, the funds provided by the family would be repaid. So there's so many people in the family trust, and Mylson was just a chief officer who doing the legwork, and who using his expertise. He has actually earned degrees in UK. He was educated in UK. I think he went to UK at a young age, and he was groomed to be a person who is going to look after the family trust. Right? So that's exactly what he's grooming to do. And he's doing it. He's doing damn good of it. He's a very successful businessman on his own, and he based in UK. So Mylson would also receive a percentage of the profits. So that's he's earning for his work that done for the Guo family. And then 9th, the facts. The fund raised by Bravolock to purchase the residence was from Mr. Zhang Wei. So who is Zhang Wei? Zhang Wei is the husband of Mylson's cousin. Okay, so it's one of the family members who basically Mylson has been looking after for, and Mr. Guo, Miss Guo. So his cousin is Miss. Also surname is same, the Guo. So Guo's family, and the fund raised by Bravolock to purchase the residence was transferred from the investment entities belonging to Mr. Zhang and Mr. Guo. So it tells you the source of the fund. Yes, it's from Bravolock, but really, who is the owner of the source of fund? It's one of the Guo's family member, okay, Miss Guo and her husband, Zhang Wei, that owns the investment entity, which ultimately is the person who paid for the residence in Sherry, Netherlands. Okay, so this is it. So if we back to the deposition, what's slide 12, that what Pax trying to accuse Miles of lying. Miles told the truth, right? Miles told the truth. Miles said, this money, it's not coming from me, it's coming from Zhang Wei, and I don't own Bravolock, which at the time he doesn't, and the investment entity that the Guo's family member owns part of it. So you can see everything Miles has been saying is truth, but Pax trying to smear that, trying to turning it upside down and trying to make a series out of nothing and using a third party, which is Ehrman's deposition, to basically insinuating that Miles has done something wrong, but which really Miles has done nothing wrong. He made his fortune legally. He's setting up his wealth legally, and everything is properly registered. Every single thing he tells is truth. Okay, but Pax wanted to say that you are a liar, and not only that, you are a serious liars, and basically that's exactly what the CCP kleptocrats ordered them to do. Right? Remember that it was Shan Weijian who paid for. If we go to the slides number 7, the Pax, the registered spy of the CCP and the chairman and president of a Pax, Shan Weijian, gave money, hired, out of a lot of lawyers and out of a lot of law firms. They picked O'Malveny and they picked Eddie Moss to be the hitman, to be the foot soldier, and to do the dirty work that they need to do, and which is completely conceal the truth that the CCP kleptocrats are the real criminal. But they wanted to pin down the person, the only person that wanted to reveal the truth about what these kleptocrats has done as a criminal. They wanted to completely confuse people. So that's what they have been doing in the past 5 years in the Pax case. But really, what they trying to distract you from knowing the truth, because that comes to our last slides, which is slides second last, slide number 18. So I'm not gonna open the whole can of worm today because we don't have time. I'm already at 1:53. It's almost an hour because I'm trying to squeeze the show less than an hour. Just because there's a lot, just only me talking. It's gonna be boring and it's gonna be tough to pay attention to. So I just wanted to let you know these are the criminals, and the crime they commit is not only affecting the Chinese people. I mean, of course, the Chinese 老百姓, the deplorables, are the biggest victims of all of them, of all of the people in the world, but they also affecting American deplorables, affecting UK, British, you name it, Australia, New Zealand, every single people living in democratic world and freedom-loving people. The CCP is your enemy, okay? And they are affecting you. They're sucking the wealth of the globe. They're not satisfied only the Chinese slaves. They are enlisted their partners, such like Ray Dalio, and whoever willing, whoever the political figures that willing to jump the wagon and, to be the slave owners. And they're in this together. They want to rule the world. They want to turning every single person into a Chinese slave, who are docile, who do not to question, who are brainwashed. Only answer is yes. Okay, so these are the crimes. So I wanted to just quickly mention it, and then we will leave the details in our next show. But just by looking at the crimes, I will tell you, we will look closely into the HNN. HNA is the big conglomerate that established, their heyday is probably 2016, 2015, when Wang Qishan, has the highest power politically and in China. Okay, they started actually 2000 and then they bankrupted in 2018, 19. The whole trajectory of HNA is basically a camouflage for the CCP kleptocrats to steal the country's wealth and to hiding it in the United States. Okay, so in order to do this, one person has to die. Actually, he is the only person we know that died, but there's many died we didn't know because Miles didn't disclose. I'm sure he's not the only person that has to die for this. And his name is Wang Jian. Okay, and this is the picture at the bottom right. Basically, it's a news reporter from BBC. You can scan the QR code, you can see the full news. Wang Jian, it was 2018, July news, July 4th. Wang Jian, the China HNA group boss, falls to his death in France. Okay, and Wang Jian, if you remember the glossary, the vocabulary, the glossary that we mentioned, white gloves, right? We mentioned the CCP kleptocrats. In order to execute their crime, to do the things they need to do, to launder the money, to do whatever, anything else, they need people to help them, because they themselves are officials. They have political titles, right? Either vice president, president, or premier, or whatever. They cannot do those things publicly. So they need to recruit those talents, cultivate them, or recruit those talents to do the dirty work for them. And Wang Jian is one of the white gloves. Just like Shan Weijian, just like Bruno Wu that we mentioned in our previous episodes, Wang Jian did so much for Wang Qishan, but because he did so much, he also knew too much. So he has to die. Okay, and then so this is a report. This is on the surface how the world media portraying the death of Wang Jian. But in 2018 November, Mile School actually opened a conference, a press conference, and told the world what's behind the death of Wang Jian and how Wang Jian really died. Okay, and then we might touch a little bit on this in the next show, but we will continue with the case. But we wanted to let you know how the kleptocrats has been getting away with their crimes, and if you wanted to just looking into it, just tiny little bit, doing a little, asking a few questions, you will see there's so many red flags there. But why the journalists? Why the trained journalist? Why the main media is silent on this? You have to ask the question, because they have an almighty powerful friends in the West to suppress, to introduce something called self-censorship. Okay, so they're scared, they're fearful. They're fearful the retaliation from the mighty dictatorship, from the mighty authoritarian, because they control so much of, weak so-called free enterprises in the world. A lot of those enterprises, we think they're standing alone or independent. They're not. They are actually controlled by the CCP through various, financial schemes and through very complicated, convoluted, complex ownership, because they're trying to hide their ownership. But very ironically, the person who does that and for criminal purpose and accuse Mile School for doing this, for hiding his personal wealth, for creating a financial maze to evade his debtor. The same person, the person who is the most corrupted person in the world, is a leader for calling anti-corruption. That's just ironic, and that is how wrong the world is right now. And that's the threat the CCP kleptocrats opposed to the free democratic society. And so here is a report by Bloomberg. They reported in 2017. It says Hainan mystery man gives away a fortune and raises fresh questions. Of course, it is suspicious, and we will dive in a little bit more. And another news, gifts of 18 billion in Chinese stock to fund a foundation raises questions. Of course, it raises questions, and that foundation is no other but the foundation called Hainan Cihang Charity Foundation. They established in 2016. Okay, in 2016. These times are not coincidence. They all have a meanings to it, but we will explain that to you. And for people who are not familiar with this, you might think that I'm telling a conspiracy. You can think that, no problem. And you don't have to watch this show, whatever. But what I'm telling you is truth. And this has been a lot of what the whistleblowing by Mile School has been proven true. And we will continue telling the truth, regardless how you think this might be a conspiracy or whatever. But it looked like, the people who believed the conspiracy actually are safer right now, especially those people who believed that vaccine is a bioweapon, who refused to take the vaccine are actually safer right now, because a lot of people who has taken the vaccine are experiencing this and that bodily harm to them. Okay, so you can keep thinking that this is conspiracy, but I'm hoping that one day you will see the whole story together. You will know that Miles has been telling the truth, has been trying to save people from the crimes of those CCP kleptocrats. And we will touch a little bit on who is Philip Rosler, who in 2017 been appointed as the CEO of Hainan Sihang Charity, who received 18 billion donations from Hainan airline. Okay, so this is all comes together. And then the one's crime syndicate, as indicated at the bottom left picture, there are a lot of people. There's a lot of people in that crime syndicate. As I mentioned, the kleptocrats, if they want to do something, they need help. And a lot of those helpers are either died or in jail. Okay, so we will touch a little bit about this in our next episode, and then we will continue on with Miles School's case against, with Pac's case against Miles School. So I think that is everything I wanted to share today. It's still very heavy, but we will see you next Tuesday again in this show at 1 p.m. on Eastern Standard Time. Thank you so much for watching, and have a great afternoon. Oh, today is the Mid-Autumn Festival, according to the Chinese lunar calendar. So the Chinese people usually, it's a typical holiday that you get together with family member, is a big reunion, and you eat moon cake and you appreciate the moon, because the moon is going to be in full circle, and so it's a very special festival for Chinese. So I'm wishing all the followers of the Whistleblower Movement and Miles School a very happy Mid-Autumn Festival. So thank you very much, and take care. See you next time. Bye.
泛黄的夜晚，霓虹灯璀璨，点亮黑暗，赶不走孤单。午夜和白天不停地转换，游走在街头，思念的孤单。相聚的狂欢总是很短暂，战友的怀抱总让我温暖，无聊的回忆让人很心烦。我又想你了，战友在哪端？没有你陪伴，我真的好孤单，我的心好慌乱，不知怎么办。没有战友的日子，我真的好茫然，整天就像丢了灵魂一般。心好慌乱，不知怎么办。你们不在身边，真的好不习惯。我的泪已流干，你们管不管？ 疯狂的夜晚，霓虹灯璀璨，点亮黑暗，赶不走孤单。午夜和白天不停地转换，游走在街头，思念的孤单。相聚的狂欢总是很短暂，战友的怀抱总让我温暖。无聊的回忆让人很心烦，我又想你了，战友在哪端？没有你陪伴，我真的好孤单，我的心好慌乱，不知怎么办。没有战友的日子，我真的好茫然，整天就像丢了灵魂一般。没有你陪伴，我真的好孤单，我的心好慌乱，不知怎么办。你们不在身边，真的好不习惯，我的泪已流干，你们管不管？